Yeah, hey,
Hey, Talani, how are you?
um, doing well, a little behind schedule per usual, but doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just letting folks roll in. Hi, Mr. Kilpatrick. Nice to meet you. We'll be getting started shortly. Uh, it's not yet 4:30, so we are early. We do like to leave a little bit of time for the rest of the guests to roll in. So Talani, you can kick back for now. I'm gonna go ahead at 4:30 and I'll start introducing us and all that good stuff.
Okie dokie. I'm gonna go on mute then, and but I'll be available.
No problem.
All right, thanks.
Just going to give it a minute or two to allow for everyone to roll in. I do like to start these things promptly, only because I like to respect everyone's time. Thank you, everyone who showed up. If you will, check in the chat. We are going to open it up at the end for questions and answers. If you do not want to speak or be seen on camera, that's totally fine. You can just type in your question in the manner that I've showed you in the chat. Hello, Mr. Vendres. You're far from a dunce, sir. If you're here, you're a smart person. Smart people realize they don't know everything, and they seek out people who know what they don't know to get that information. All right. Just giving a few more minutes for people to roll in. Again, most of these things, you do need to allow 5 or 10 minutes for people to come. So in honor and respect of those who showed up on time or early, we do thank you and a wonderful salute in that manner. I'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started. Once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for showing up. And we will be intending on having many more of these. So this is the first of 2023, and this is the first of many. Someone said it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you so much for appearing at our second official The Source Built for Business Owners, but our first event of 2023. So today, it's going to be fairly simple. We're just going to be going over some of the basics of what you need to know about retirement accounts and investment accounts. If you are interested in learning further details or getting an evaluation of your own, please consult with the representative or the advisor who invited you to this event. So without further ado, my name is Alonzo Hall. I'm a representative here with CG Wealth Solutions Group based out of New York City. I have approximately 15 years in the industry, where I started with a small company that a lot of you are probably familiar with called Aflac. From Aflac, I then moved to a larger company called Mutual of Omaha, where I cut my teeth in the concrete jungles of Wall Street, and then moved to stock brokeraging, where I found that that was a little bit too stressful. So I went back into the insurance and insurance portion of financial services to help people with protecting or identifying and protecting their health, lifestyles, and wealth. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over a little bit of brief information in terms of what retirement accounts are and what they may mean to you. Now, this is not only from a business aspect, but it's also a personal aspect. Obviously, businesses are very personal, and we all enter into our businesses for one reason or another. Most of the time, that reason is to provide a lifestyle and a legacy for our families and our futures. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and we'll pull up my first screen here. So as you can see, our first screen is telling you to take control of your personal pension income. So this is something that we often use with a lot of our clientele when we are reviewing their pension plans. Now, most people today are not familiar with a pension plan, as a lot of pension plans have been removed out of the industry. So now you may be used to a few of the other products that I'm going to go ahead and show you. So one would be something which is a qualified retirement plan. So now what is a qualified retirement plan? Well, a qualified retirement plan is a program that is implemented and maintained by an employer or an individual for the primary purpose of providing retirement benefits. And it meets specific rules which are spelled out by the Internal Revenue Service. Okay, so let's take a look at some of those details of what that qualified retirement plan entails. So if you look here for an employer sponsored qualified retirement plan, it's going to be established by the employer for the exclusive benefit of the employees and their beneficiaries. Obviously, the plan must be in writing and it has to be communicated to all of the company employees. The assets cannot be used other than the exclusive benefit of the employees or their beneficiaries until the plan is terminated and all the obligations to the employees and their beneficiaries have been satisfied. Now, plan contributions or benefits cannot exceed specified amounts, and we'll speak about that a little bit later as we get deeper into the weeds of all of the other products that we have available to you. So the plan must also meet certain eligibility, coverage, vesting, and minimum funding standards. It has to provide for distributions that meet specified distribution requirements. It's also got to prohibit the assignment or alienation of plan benefits. And ladies and gentlemen, please feel welcome to, just for your own reference, if you even don't remember at the end, your questions to type into the chat. So now also the death benefits may be included inside of the plan, but only to the extent that they are incidental as defined by law.
So a major question is, why do employers comply with these requirements and establish qualified retirement plans? And the answer is to take advantage of tax advantages offered by qualified retirement plans. So as most of you here may be entrepreneurial minded, or currently business owners, or even venturing into being business owners, you want to concern yourself with tax saving strategies. So one of the things that we offer to a lot of our clients is, not only do we mention, listen, we're not just here to sell you an insurance policy. We're not just here to sell you a retirement plan. We're not just here to throw you into an investment. Okay. We want to help you to identify and protect your lifestyle. And we want to help you with tax maximization strategies. So one of those strategies is things like this. Okay. So the next option that you may have as a business owner is something called a DB, or a defined benefit plan. Now, you guys may be familiar with these. Sometimes you may get it in like a disability policy where someone is injured and unable to go back to work, so they are forced to retire. So the defined benefit plan will actually be a specific benefit amount that is paid to you for a specific period of time. Most companies nowadays are not participating in defined benefit plans, but they are participating in something called a defined contribution plan. So the major difference between those we'll discuss shortly, but let's take a look at what a defined benefit plan is and what it consists of. So a defined benefit plan promises that a specific benefit will be paid at retirement. The promised retirement benefit can be either a flat dollar amount that is provided to all employees, or more commonly, a benefit that is determined according to a formula. The annual employer contributions required to provide the promised retirement benefits are then actuarially determined. So these are actually calculated where you put in X and it's going to give the participant X dollars for X amount of time. So we'll take a look at the benefit formulas, because there are formulas that are used in calculating what you will receive when you are in or participating or providing a benefit, a defined benefit for your employees. So there is a flat dollar amount. So this means that all plan participants receive the same flat dollar amount at retirement. For example, $300 a month for the rest of their life. Okay. There is a flat percentage, which means that each participant receives a fixed percentage of their compensation as a retirement percentage, right? So as you see here, it says, for example, 20% of their average compensation for 3 consecutive highest paid years. You'll hear this defined benefit plan is actually offered by things like municipalities. If you're a police officer, a firefighter, sometimes in the medical care field, you'll also see these things. And they'll usually call it your big 3, the highest 3 years that you've earned. And if you're an employee, the benefit to you is, you know, those 3 years that you put in a lot of overtime. Well, that then calculates towards your big 3. As the employer, which is what most of you are here for, is the likelihood that there are, again, tax benefits, right, to providing these for your employees. So one of the things, like I said, for the personal level, we like to teach our clients that we're here to identify and protect your lifestyle. But what's one thing that employees prefer over a salary? And that's features and benefits. So what we like to do is we like to help you attract and retain quality employees, because many people that I know across this country will gladly give up X amount of dollars in salary for the security, knowing that they're going to get things like healthcare, things like a defined benefit contribution plan, if it's availed to them. So again, someone with an average compensation of $75,000 would then receive a $15,000 annual pension benefit. Now, there's also the unit benefit. So each plan participant receives a flat dollar amount or a percentage of compensation for each completed year of service. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just check here. I believe I have a few people that need to be let in. Give me 1 second here. I see some new participants. Sorry about that. Okay, so each plan participant receives a flat dollar amount or a percentage of compensation for each completed year of service, right? So $25 a month for benefit for each completed year of service. And so would pay a $500 monthly benefit to someone who worked 20 years on the job. Alternatively, 2% of monthly compensation for each completed year of service would result in a $2,000 monthly pension benefit for someone making $5,000 a month who had that 20 years of service. And the advantages, okay? So if the business has older, higher paid employees, including the owner employees, a defined benefit plan makes it possible to shelter large amounts of current business income and provide meaningful retirement benefits to older employees who are fewer years away from retirement. So again, when we're looking at tax strategies, this is something that you may have heard of called a tax shelter. So you actually have the opportunity to shelter yourself from taxes. Give me 1 second here. Okay. And so some of those, I'll be right back. Let me just, wow, a lot of people are popping in here now. Okay. And so some of the disadvantage of that are you have the administration of a DB plan, which can be quite complex, right? It's going to require actuarial reviews, generally once every 2 years, in order to determine how much you have to contribute as the employer to provide the promised retirement benefits. So remember, you're promising a specific amount to the person, which is the employee. And then the employer also assumes the risk of the investment performance, okay? So if the plan investments perform below the assumed rates of return, you as the employer may have to increase those contributions in order to provide any of those promised benefits. Now, I do want to leave this kind of fluid. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions, concerns, or comments. And feel welcome to unmute yourself.
Really quick, I don't have a question, but I am waiting to get people in. So I don't know if you see anything pending on your side. It shows from my end that you're in another meeting, but it won't allow access to.
It shows that I'm in another meeting.
Yeah, when with the link that you sent for this event. So I don't know if you have like a time cutoff, or do you see anybody waiting?
I do not.
Okay, that's not good. Hold on.
That's strange. And we have to build it as we fly, right? Technology is
Do you see anything now or no?
I do.
Okay, could you try?
I see one person.
Yeah. Are you able to add or no?
I did add him. It's I see just the one person who joined. I don't see anyone else.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on.
Technology, right?
Yeah. We'll just keep chugging along then. It's okay. I don't want to take up too much time with this.
That's fair. Don't worry, I'm a little bit long-winded, so I can take up a lot of time. And ladies and gentlemen, again, if you do have any questions, I'll give a brief moment if you'd like to unmute. Otherwise, you can always post it in the chat Talani, or Alana, do you see anyone in the chat with questions?
I'm checking. No.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and continue here. So close the chat for a moment. So again, the employer, which would be you, the entrepreneurial minded person, or the business owner, or even the self-employed person, would assume those investment risks. And if the investment does not perform as planned, then you may have to increase the contributions in order to provide the promised benefit amount. And this is one of the reasons that you'll see that a lot of employers outside of municipalities no longer offer a defined benefit plan. Now we're going to take a look at what's called DC, or defined contribution plan. So now in a defined contribution plan, the employer makes a stated annual contribution to the plan, and then it's allocated to the plan participants' accounts and invested on their behalf. Now, when a plan participant retires, the amount of his or her retirement benefit is based on the value of that account at retirement. So there's a few different types of defined contribution plans. And again, these are also offered by things like banks and a lot of governmental employees, right? With governmental employees like post office, you'll hear it as a TSP, or a thrift savings plan. Even again, in the medical field, you'll hear thrift savings plan or a TSP. Military definitely has a TSP. I work with a lot of federal employees, as do a lot of my team, and these are some of the things that we experience there. So you'll notice that it starts with a money purchase plan, or a money purchase pension plan. So employer contributions are required and are generally based on a fixed percentage of employee compensation, such as 10% of compensation. So again, it's going to be a defined contribution. So as opposed to a defined benefit where they tell you you are definitely going to get X amount of dollars for X period of time, this way they say, well, we are definitely going to contribute X amount of dollars. It does relieve a little bit of that investment risk on the employer's standpoint. So then the second would be a savings or a thrift plan, again, a TSP or a thrift savings plan. And I'm very familiar that my colleague, Mr. Mitchell, is probably familiar with a thrift savings plan from having been a member of the wonderful police force, and the military. So thank you for your service. And if we do have any military service members in the room, salute and thank you guys as well for your service. So as we see here, mandatory employee contributions, which the employer then matches to a stated degree, are usually required in a savings or a thrift plan. So for example, the employer may match dollar for dollar the employee contributions up to 3% of the compensation. So since mandatory employee contributions in a savings or thrift plan are not tax deductible, these plans are less popular than the 401k, which provide before tax employee contributions. We will get to the 401k shortly. I am going to speed this up myself a little bit, and just because I do want to allow time for everyone to actually ask their questions. Let's see, we have something in the chat here. Let me just see. Waiting room participants. I don't see anyone waiting in the waiting room yet. Yes, I do. Okay. So bear with me. I'm just letting everyone in. We're going to build it as we fly, ladies and gentlemen. It's not as simple as I thought to run a chat and go at the same time. Okay. Am I able to let this person in? Admit. It will not let them in. Why not? There we go. Okay. So as we continue, So then you have target benefit plans. So while classified as a defined contribution plan, a target benefit plan is a hybrid plan. As in a DB plan or defined benefit plan, annual employer contributions are based on the amount needed to provide a target retirement benefit. You might know those as target date funds. For example, in a lot of retirement accounts, most people just put it as of today, they're probably putting it in the 2035 fund or the future 2040 fund at this point. People who are looking to retire in the next less than 20 years. Okay. So you're going to have that retirement benefit using an assumed rate, which produces larger contributions for older employees. Now, the plan then operates like a money purchase pension plan, with the employer making the required annual contribution and the employee receiving a retirement benefit determined by the value of his or her own account at retirement. So some of the advantages are that DC plans tend to be easier to set up, to administer, and to explain to the employees. The employee assumes the risk of the investment and performance, and the employer's only obligation is to make the contributions required by the plan. Some of the disadvantages are, since the DC plan or defined contribution plan tends to favor younger employees who've got a longer time period in which their retirement accounts can grow, it may not be possible with a defined or a DC plan to provide a substantial retirement benefit to older owner employees or even key employees who have fewer years until retirement. So next, we're going to look at something called a profit sharing plan. Okay, so a profit sharing plan is not required to have a definitely determinable benefit or contribution. As a result, contributions to profit sharing plans can vary from year to year at the discretion of the employer. Now, while the employer is not required to make contributions to the plan each year, there must be a recurring and substantial contribution in order for the future plan to retain its qualified retirement plan status. Okay. Now, while the amount of the annual contribution to a profit sharing plan can vary from year to year, once a contribution is made to the plan, it must be allocated to the accounts of participants. Looks like I got to admit someone else. In a uniform, non-discriminatory manner, where it is invested on their behalf. Now, when a plan participant retires, the amount of his or her retirement benefit is then based on the value of the participant's account at retirement. So, profit sharing plan contributions. So the profit sharing plan document specifies how contributions to the plan will be determined. There's considerable flexibility available in this regard. For example, annual contributions can be based on a specified percentage of net profits, or it can be equal to the amount by which profits exceed a specified dollar amount, or it can be equal to an amount determined by the board of directors each year. So you might find a profit sharing plan inside of something like a not-for-profit organization, like a church, right? This is definitely something that you may find there, or even like a local library. Now, some of the advantages are that contributions are based on business profitability and left to the discretion of the board of directors. Now, again, when I say not-for-profit and business profitability, you may think that's kind of skewed, but not-for-profits are not in the business of not making money. They are just not in it to make a profit. So generally at the end of the year, when they are dealing with their taxes, and this is not tax advice, make sure to consult your tax professional about that. However, at the end of the fiscal year, when they are filing their taxes, generally they're going to offload a lot of funds into a multitude of different avenues so that they don't show profits. But for example, the CEO of Goodwill definitely brings home a hefty annual salary. The employee assumes the risk of investment performance, and the employees who have an opportunity to share in company profits may be better motivated employees. Again, like I said, one of the things that we teach you is how to attract and retain quality employees. Why? Because when you have great benefits, people are willing to forego salary, right? I'm not worried about if I work at McDonald's $15 an hour, if I know I've got profit sharing, great health insurance, and things that I may not be paying for, even if you're taking a few dollars out of my check. These are things that are going to set me up so that I can live the rest of my life comfortably. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so some of the disadvantages here are, since profit sharing plans tend to favor, again, younger employees who have a longer time in which their retirement accounts can grow, it may not be possible with a profit sharing plan to provide a substantial retirement benefit to those older owner employees or those key employees. So moving on, something that we're all familiar with and we hear all too often is the 401k plan. So a 401k plan is a type of profit sharing plan that allows employees to choose between receiving current compensation and being taxed on it, or deferring compensation into that 401k and deferring tax on it through a coda or a cash or deferred arrangement, which is what most people do. And when you do a coda, what that does is that lowers your annual taxable income, which is why most people like it. Now, a lot of people dislike 401ks for another reason. It'll probably be here in the disadvantages. But again, one of those disadvantages is that if you forego the taxes today, you're going to have to pay those taxes as regular income in the future, not as capital gains. We'll discuss that later. So, employers frequently make a matching contribution equal to some percentage of the employee's elective salary deferral. A 401k plan can also provide for profit-sharing contributions made by the employer and allocated to the accounts of all plan participants in a uniform, non-discriminatory manner. So plan participants are usually able to allocate their 401k contributions among the various investment alternatives available in the plan, which most people are very unaware of. Now, also, you need to be aware that at your job, you will have a advisor, such as myself, whose job it is to actually explain and help walk the employees through their investment options or their allocation options. However, most people just put it in a target date fund and kind of leave it because when you mention big numbers or even those numbers, people's eyes start to glaze over and they don't want to do too much brain work. They'd rather just leave it to me, who put in my 10,000 hours to understand this stuff completely. So the amount of the participant, the amount a participant's retirement benefit is then based on the value of the participant's account at retirement. So contributions to a 401k typically arise from one or more of these sources: the salary reduction, where the employee decides to take that coda, a matching or an employee match, which is what most people are going to be looking for, right? So the employer agrees to match a percentage of the employee's elective salary deferral, right? So the typical match is a percentage, for example, 50% for each dollar deferred by the employee, or a profit sharing contribution. So the employer makes a profit sharing contribution, which each employee can take in cash and then defer it to the 401k, or a combination of the two. So some of the advantages are that both employers and employees can make retirement plan contributions on a pre-tax basis, and the employee directs how his or her 401k is invested, and they assume the risk of that investment performance. The disadvantage is that some 401ks are more involved to administer than other types of QRPs, or qualified retirement plans. And 401ks tend to be more advantageous for younger employees with more time available until retirement. Why is that? Again, the younger you are and the younger you start, when time is on your side, time is on your side. Now, one of the disadvantages that they did not mention here about the 401k is that it's very expensive to administer. An advisor like myself, an advisor like Talani, an advisor like Alana, an advisor like Greg, or an advisor like Jonathan, who are all people who are on my team, an advisor like Charles, who is the principal of our company, is going to charge you quite a hefty fee for administering your plan. Generally, it may be a percentage of all of the assets that are under management. But we generally require that initially upfront, and that just comes from whatever firm we're putting that money in. For example, Prudential or Charles Schwab. So now there's something also called a Roth 401k, which is an option. I'm going to kind of speed through this option here. So basically pay now or pay later. So with the availability of a Roth 401k, if the 401k plan permits, employees can now choose to contribute all or a portion of their 401k plan elective salary deferrals to a Roth 401k account. So the Roth 401k is similar to a Roth IRA, in that contributions are made with after-tax dollars. So the contributions are not excluded from your current income. So that means that you're going to pay taxes on those dollars today. However, the benefit is that now in your future, when you're in your retirement years, you don't have to pay taxes on something as if you were working, right? I'm sure we've all had jobs and people have heard the term, the more you make, the more they take. Well, that ends up happening. And let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, tax rates are likely to raise. And most people don't want to be in a predicament where they are 67, 68, 75 years old, and they now need to go work at Walmart because they've ran through their 401k, which pays out something called period certain. We can talk about that later. So in addition, if the 401k, Roth 401k plan account grows tax-free, and it has that Roth tax advantage. So qualified distributions from a Roth 401k are received completely free of your federal income tax. A qualified distribution is one that is made more than 5 years after the account is established, and you have to be at least 59 and a half, and that stands true for all qualified retirement plans. The only caveat to that is if you're disabled and you're told that you can't go back to work. So it offers you the choice of paying your taxes later. You can also pay your tax now, or you can split your elective salary deferrals. So I only have 2 more slides to go through, but I really want to leave some time for what everybody is here for, which is the basics of the investments, right? The retirement accounts are kind of dull and boring, but I'm actually excited when Talani gets to speaking about our investments. So now we're going to talk about something for those self-employed individuals or those who are the business owners. So an SEP is a employer-funded IRA or an individual retirement account. So you can actually buy an IRA from an insurance representative or an RIA, registered investment advisor. It's likely that you're better off buying your IRA from an investment advisor or insurance agent as opposed to the bank. So they're provided for each participating employee. And the cool thing is you can kind of do an executive carve out with an SEP. Beautiful thing is there are S Corp strategies. And if you are paying for this through the name of the business, you can actually put for yourself, if you're the self-employed individual, you can lower your annual income by approximately $61,000 by stuffing up to $61,000 into an SEP IRA, whereas a traditional IRA has a maximum of $6,000. It probably doesn't say that in my slide. Sometimes, you know, I try to put as much legal jargon in my slides as possible. So let's see here. The employer makes contributions to these SEP IRAs on a discretionary basis. So the plan has fewer IRS reporting and disclosure requirements and tends to be a lot easier to administer than other types of qualified retirement plans. So let's take a look at some of the advantages. SEPs have minimal administrative and reporting requirements. The employer has flexibility to whether to contribute to the SEP each year and has until its tax filing deadline to make those SEP contributions. The employer directs how his or her IRA is invented and assumes the risk of investment performance. So again, the employee does not have to assume that investment risk. Now, the disadvantage is that virtually all the employees do have to be covered by an SEP, but since an SEP contributions are made to an IRA owned by the employee, vesting is immediate. Unlike a lot of these other programs where your vesting happens after between 5 and 14 years of service on the job, day one, you're vested. And SEPs tend to be more advantageous for, again, the younger individual. So now we're going to look at a simple plan or a savings incentive match plan for employees. Okay, so a simple retirement plan can be set up by employers with 100 or fewer employees for the purpose of enabling employees to, again, defer a portion of their salary on a before tax basis to a retirement plan. So employers must also make a matching contribution up to specified limits. So there are a few different types of simple plans. You have a simple IRA, the simple 401k. Okay, and some of the things here are you can't make a deferral more than 3%, non-elective contribution up to 2%, and you have to, whether it be full-time or part-time, have in at least 3 quarters made at least $5,000 or worked 10,000 hours. So the simple 401k operates pretty much like a regular 401k. With those vesting requirements. However, the employer that adopts the simple 401k doesn't have to comply with the top heavy non-discriminatory compliance, right? So you don't have to not carve out certain employees. Maybe you don't want the janitor to have it. You only want the key holding managers. So some of the advantages are simple plans have minimal administration and reporting requirements. Owner employees and other highly paid employees are not restricted as to the amount that they can contribute, as you are restricted in a traditional 401k due to low participation in the 401k by lower paid employees. The employee directs how his or her contributions are invested and assumes the employee takes the investment risk. Now, some of the disadvantages are almost all of your employees are eligible to participate in a simple plan. All the simple plan contributions, including those made by the employer, vest immediately to the employee. So the disadvantage as the employer is somebody can come as soon as they contribute and you make their contributions and they only work for you for a year and leave, you got to give them their money. And simple plans tend to be, again, more advantageous for the younger employee. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know I've been blabbing for a little while. That's it from me. I will go ahead and pause there, and I will allow Talani to open up and get to speaking. We're probably going to go a little longer than to 6 o'clock because I want to leave it open for a little bit of Q&A. And without further ado, Talani, you can well, let me let you guys know about how amazing this young lady is. So she is the owner operator of a farmers insurance agency called the Granger Agency. She holds multiple securities licenses, her Series 6, 63, and 7. So she definitely is familiar with corporate investments, as she used to have a career with Charles Schwab. Unfortunately, they were not growing as fast as she is, and she was outperforming them. So she decided to branch out and become independent. So I'm not going to brag or gush over her too much longer. I'll go ahead and leave the floor open to you. And without further ado, Miss Talani Granger.
Well, thank you. That was a great introduction. I feel like I should have that everywhere I go, right? But I appreciate you. So I wanted to make sure when we're doing this webinar that I'm not just talking at you guys. So just to get a little bit of interaction, can you just shoot a message in the chat just to, hey, how are you? It's something to see you guys interacting. Just want to make sure that we all are able to communicate with each other. typically I have a general presentation, but with this, since this is our first time really talking about investments, I wanted to thank you, Brian. Love it. Peace to you. But I also wanted to make sure I had an idea of where everybody is at in their investing level. And if we have some traders, if we know the difference. Hey, Coach K, thank you for commenting. So really quick, how many of you guys would consider yourself pretty savvy on a scale of 1 to 10? Like, I'm an expert, I do day trading, I'm in options and futures, or you're more in the beginning stages, like you have a retirement account, you know it's invested, but you're not quite sure into what. Maybe you even know how to place a trade. You know the difference between a mutual fund, a stock, a bond. Okay, we got a beginner. Okay, cool. Got some beginners in here. So do you guys have brokerage accounts? So that's going to be an account that you place trades in. That's not a retirement account. So that'll be your taxable accounts, essentially. Okay, you're with Fidelity. Okay, no, okay. So there's two different types of accounts where most people generally trade in. That's the brokerage account and your retirement account. And as we know, Alonzo went through quite a few different ones. Okay, personal retirement account, perfect. So within all retirement accounts, they're tax sheltered when you place a trade. So that means if you made, let's see, good example. Who, you guys remember what happened with GameStop and Reddit when GameStop was trading at like, I don't know, maybe $16 and then shot all the way up to 500 bucks? So an example of that would be GameStop was in your retirement account and you sold those shares, you wouldn't have to pay capital gains tax on that. That means it's tax sheltered, right? When it's in a regular brokerage account, that's when you have to pay taxes on it. So those are the two main type of accounts. Most of you guys have retirement accounts from the look of the chat here, which is great. So you don't have to worry about that capital gains. But within that retirement account, usually your employer, or if you're self-employed, you usually have an option of different investments. How many of you guys are familiar with that list, or you've seen it, or you've heard about it? Just shoot me a message in the chat. I don't want to talk at you. I want to talk to you. So interact with me, come off of mute if you need to, but let me know kind of what are some things that you see within your account, retirement options. Do we know the difference between a mutual fund and a stock? I'll start there. Can anybody tell me what a mutual fund is versus a stock? Okay, cool. Got a couple of mutual funds. That's going to be your most common investment choice within a retirement account. A lot of companies will set that up for people who are kind of risk adverse, right? And it helps a lot with that, right? So with mutual funds, they have a combination of different investments within it. So they have a kind of a portfolio plan manager, right? Who goes and handpicks maybe a bunch of different stocks, some treasuries, some bonds. They might have a little bit of money in cash, and they pack all that together to create a mutual fund. Whereas a stock is just a share that you purchase and you own that little piece of the company. So I always explain to my kids when we're out driving, like, hey, we can go buy McDonald's, right? You could be the owner of McDonald's, or we could go get a burger. Like, which one do you want to do, right? And that's kind of how that stock works. When you're buying a stock, you're actually literally buying a piece of a company. And the bond is the exact opposite. So if you're familiar with a bond, or you ever heard of that before, a bond is literally you're buying a debt. So you're pretty much taking on somebody's debt and they're paying you interest on it until it matures. I love that. Yeah. So mutual funds are pretty cool, especially if you're just getting started, because they have a lot of different ways that you could set it up. So how many of you guys have heard of target date funds? You might have seen that in your retirement accounts, and it might have like the 2030 or 2035 or the 2025, right? For us who are getting ready to retire, I wish. But yes. So those target date funds are going to be set up to be more risky, right? And when I say more risk, it's going to be invested more in stocks the further you are from that target date. So if we do have somebody who is retiring in 2 years and they have their money in a 2025 target date fund, that means that that mutual fund is going to be built of more cash, more treasury bonds, more really secure investments where you're not seeing that fluctuation of the market. Whereas somebody who's going to be retiring in maybe 20, 30 years, their target date fund is going to be heavily invested in different types of stock and different sectors. So I didn't pull up anything just because I wanted to really gauge where everybody was at. But have you seen like when you're kind of looking through that stuff, you see the small cap, large cap markets? Have any of you guys seen anything like that before? Alonzo, please feel free to chime in as well. I see you nodding your head, so that is great. Okay, so how many of you guys know what does that mean? Like, have you ever like stopped and been like, okay, what does that mean? Is it associated with risk, company size? What do you guys think that means?
Is it market capitalization or the revenues of the investment?
So with that, when you see like small cap, large cap funds, things like that, they're actually referring to the size of the companies that it's invested in. So there's going to be different markers, right? Like, have you ever heard of a blue chip stock? When you hear the term blue chip, we're talking about Fortune 500 companies. We're talking about Disney Channel, our Nike Disney Channel. You can tell I have kids. Disney, right? Our Nike corporation. Those are our blue chip stocks. Those are going to be our large cap companies. And there's specific numbers, but I have to look right on Investopedia, which is a great source. Still, I use it to this day. But it'll give you a breakdown of what those numbers really mean. But if you see small cap, that means you're investing in a stock or a company that is going to be smaller. Yep, exactly. Perfect. Yep. They're going to be smaller. They might typically be startup companies. They're going to be really volatile, right? You're going to be able to see that price jump around based off of, the performance and the earnings of what that company is doing. And if you're generally just trying to look for something that is appropriate within your retirement account, there's a couple of things that I would suggest to you. And the first thing is, what is your risk tolerance? So when I say risk tolerance, what do you guys think about pertaining to your money, right? What do you think that is when I say risk tolerance? All right, now you guys talk back.
Don't be afraid, folks.
I would say peace, Zoe, and peace, Kalani. I would say that basically risk tolerance is what can you afford in terms of disposable income? What can you afford to? What kind of money can you put at risk in terms of investments with the goal of making that money grow? How much of that capital are you able to put on the line? And if you lose, it doesn't affect your lifestyle in terms of ways of living in a meaningful way. You can take the loss and you still be okay.
Yes. So that is absolutely one side of a risk, of having risk tolerance, right? So what is affordable to you is a major factor, but sometimes you could be a millionaire and you just can't stomach losing a lot of money, right? Like sometimes you have, say you have $300,000 in your retirement account and your portfolio manager puts it into one of those small cap emerging market super volatile stocks. You may not be able to stomach that, even though you have all this money, you have a 30-year timeline, you have plenty of time to make it back. The other side of that coin is, what could you mentally and emotionally tolerate, right? Because we have to understand the market fluctuates. When you're dealing with somebody, especially an individual who's handling your money, they should understand your needs for liquidity, but also what can you tolerate that won't make you wake up at night, right? If you're not comfortable with that big risk, we don't want to put you in that type of investment. So when you're looking on your own, simple things to look at is, let me just take a look at this chart, right? So usually mutual funds will have a pie chart associated with them, and it will tell you the different sectors or sections that it is broken up into. The more you're in stocks, the more volatile it is going to be. That's just kind of the name of the game with stocks. To kind of break that down further, if you have stocks that are more so those small cap funds or emerging markets, you know that those are also going to be a bit more volatile because they're new. If you're looking at stocks and they're large cap, and then you see maybe there's some bonds or treasury notes, you know that is a little more of a conservative mix, but you also will have different options within there. So within retirement accounts, usually fund managers will offer you, I don't know, 10 to 15 different type of mutual funds. You can choose as many as you like, or you can say that you want to be self-directed. That is usually an option at some companies. And from there, you can really start to break things down a little more. You can choose that mutual fund, or maybe you can put money into stocks. But the more concentrated you are in just one area, the bigger the risk is, right? Like, have you ever heard the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket? That's exactly how it is with the market. So if you're looking at a mutual fund, specifically, since we're talking about retirement accounts, the more concentrated that mutual fund is, even if it's heavily within the US or overseas, that is a type of risk that you want to be mindful of, and take a look at what's going on in the economy as well and see if you can tolerate that. Does that make sense to everybody?
Absolutely.
Well,
Yep.
Yes.
yes, thank you. Okay, I knew you guys could talk. Here we go. Love to hear it. So with that, just, I don't want to like overflow with a ton of information, especially since I don't have a visual to add to it, because that can get really confusing. But is there anything specifically related to what you've seen within your retirement account that maybe you're just not sure about? Or if you have specific questions on what are you looking at when you place a trade, right? Have any of you guys ever entered your own trade or like order to sell some of your investments before?
No, not me.
Okay.
No.
So it kind of depends on your platform for sure. But it's pretty straightforward, right? So if you ever hear the words or the term market order, what do you guys think that is?
Not sure.
So with that, with market order, that means sell it right now, whatever price it's at. Whatever they're doing, I want it gone right now. Get it out. Give me the best price fast, right? And with Alonzo being a New Yorker, market order is like how I think of it, how I associate it, right? Like, okay, it's market order, it's fast. I would love that. If you guys have questions and you want to interact, I'm totally okay with you guys unmuting for sure.
Yeah, please feel welcome. This is a relaxed environment. So if you have, questions, concerns, or comments, we're done presenting. That's why she's asking you guys the questions. Only
Right,
type if you're uncomfortable.
Perfect.
Definitely. I wanna talk to you guys and really kind of gauge where you're at in your investment journey, instead of just kind of throwing a bunch of information because
Mhm.
I forget stuff if people do that to me. So
Oh, it happens. Don't worry. So to add in with some of the things, and this is some of the things I've done in the past with mutual funds, just to backtrack, things that I like to research and tell me if I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut up. I'm all right with that. And call me BK. So I always research the account manager, how long they've been there, how long their account's been around. And a lot of this stuff you can get through Google Finance, or like I said before, Morningstar. Now, for some of y'all, if you've never seen Morningstar, it's got like a 3x3 matrix or a setup where they talking about it's aggressive, or I can't remember what it is. It's like, was it long term or investment? It's kind of one of the things I always try to go for things in the top right corner, especially when I was first starting out. But now that I'm getting close to retirement, I'm going a little bit more conservative with things that I look at if I do decide to change. But that's just some things I look at. And so when it comes to large capital businesses, I look at that top 10 or 10%, like what companies are the majority of that fund. The smaller ones, this is where it gets kind of tricky. The small capital ones, those are kind of the crapshoot, what you're getting into. But I always recommend people look at what assets they have. When you start researching that company, do they own property? Have 10 of that fund, does the individual companies, because, and this is how weird I am, I will go and research that top 10, that's the majority of that mutual fund. I'm like, all right, how long has this company been around? All right, you're new, but you got somebody who's been in charge of it for a while. So SpaceX is new, but we know who Elon Musk is. I would buy a fund that might have him leading it if he's making intelligent decisions. Something that may have like a backing by Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, Bezos, stuff that's kind of like that, where I see that the guys with money are backing it up. I might try to piggyback on that because it's usually cheaper for me to get on that one.
Mm.
Your thoughts?
thank you. I love that. So that's all. That's awesome. Whenever I'm talking to new investors, that is a big piece. I always tell them, go for what you know, right? If you buy it, see if you can own part of the company. That is a big thing I always tell my kids, right? Like if we're going to shop at Five and Below, we're talking about Five and Below stock. That's in Colorado. I don't know if it's made it to other parts of the US.
Nah, everybody got Five Below.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah,
just
we
checking.
got that here
It's
in
around.
Texas. We got that here
Okay,
in
okay,
Texas.
all right. Just checking, but Five and Below is the hot spot for my kiddos now, right? Like it's the new Toys R Us, or you know,
Mhm.
the what Amazon. I rather go to Five and Below, right? But those are great points that he made. Go for what you know. If you see these familiar faces and names, these billionaires backing it up, why are they backing it up? Right? What do their earnings reports look like? So a couple of things that I look at because I am a nerd, right? I'm gonna look at earnings. Is this company profitable? Have they been profitable the last couple of quarters, right? If I'm not planning on holding this investment long time, I probably will just look back within the last year or so to see the performance. But you can literally look at a chart on Google and say, hey, like I'm not sure, but this company might be something I want to look at. So just to kind of do a quick screen share for you guys, since we're talking about Five and Below stock. And even if you don't know the ticker symbol, right? Ticker symbol is just going to be that short abbreviation that you use when you're entering your trade. It's really simple just to Google this stuff. So I'll share my screen really quick, Alonzo, if I can. This is Google, guys. Free information. 5 stock, right? What does this stock do today? Just like a quick breakdown. Well, yeah, the market's closed, right? So all this means as it closed 4 cents higher than it did yesterday. And right now, if you wanted to buy a share of Five and Below, it'd be $192.06. The chart kind of gives you an idea of volatility, like what has it been doing? What can I expect, right? I will look at a few things here, like the 52-week high and low, and that just kind of gives me an idea if I want to place an order to buy. I don't like to feel like I'm buying anything too expensive. I don't want to buy it at $193. I want to get to as close to $109 as I can. So I might place an order, a limit on my order. And when you place a limit, that just means you're setting the price to buy. And usually you can set a time frame for that when you're placing a trade, but setting that limit, maybe I want to go in at 120. Maybe I want to wait and set it at $90 for 5 shares. That's what a limit order is going to do. You're able to set the price and the amount of shares that you want to purchase. But sometimes researching a company and knowing more about it is a Google click away. It's not anything that is super complicated. And he's absolutely right. Go for what you know first. Look things up.
Real quick, you guys both mentioned some things, and I see here, I use Yahoo Finance. I've found that Yahoo Finance is probably, in my opinion, a little more accurate. And then I don't know if you already answered the question I was about to ask about the 52-week moving average. So sorry, the 52-week high and 52-week low. So that was just awesome. And BK says Yahoo Finance is clutch.
Okay.
Definitely. I actually have a family member who was with Reuters or Reuters, however you pronounce it. And then Axios, and now he's with Wall Street Journal. His name is Dion Raboin. And we don't really affiliate that much because of nepotism. But those are definitely some awesome things. So I'm going to shut up and open it up to you guys again for questions, because I'm sure you guys have a lot of stuff to ask Talani.
I was just going to.
No, go ahead, Alani.
Okay, I was just going to say that this is awesome for me because coming from the company that I was at, they didn't really explain a lot of stuff. It was just, buy term and invest the difference. And so that's what we did. And so our investments were just in mutual funds. And so we got the 401k, the Roth IRA, the general, the emergency, things of that nature. But when I started looking at, okay, well, I need to start learning how to invest on my own, the simplest way for me to do, because I didn't have a lot of money, was I started with cashapp, because they have a lot of different options where you can different stocks. And so I saw General Electric and I just put $50 in General Electric, nothing big. But I've watched it grow a little bit. And then I did the Hilton. And so I've had it for I had the General Electric for about 2 years. And in the 2 years, it has made me like $38. That's not nothing big, but that's something just starting to learn how it works a little bit. But now I'm getting better. And I'm going to be taking a portion out of my earnings to invest so that I can get a really good, strong portfolio. So this right here is really great for me because I'm learning a lot. I can't retain it all, but I believe it's recorded. So eventually I can go back and listen so that I can hear it over and over again and start to really learn this stuff, because eventually I want to be a complete financial advisor. So I need to learn everything that I can. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to learn what I'm learning right now. So thank you.
I love that. And now that I kind of have an idea of where you guys are at, I could send out some literature, right? There's some handouts, some pamphlets, some things that you can kind of refer back to. But what you described is excellent. Like, honestly, when I first got started, I used the Acorns app. Have you guys heard of Acorns and Stash?
Yeah.
I started off with that, right? And that was just exchange traded funds and kind of learning the difference between those. And they're similar to mutual funds except for how they trade. So mutual funds will trade once a day. Exchange traded funds will trade throughout the day like a stock, but it's built like a mutual fund. So that's the only difference between the two. But yeah, these are all really good tools. And what you described is dollar cost averaging, which is awesome, right? Like that means you're going in and you're buying stuff at different prices. And ultimately that's how you really start to build your portfolio.
So any other questions, folks? We definitely are here. We've got a few minutes left until the top of the hour. So definitely take advantage if you can at the moment. Questions, concerns, you want to figure out how to contact us. Again, make sure if you want to get an evaluation of your own that you reach back out to the advisor that invited you, and we'll set up, appointments. We do, as a team, we will work together with you. So each one of us specializes in a different area, and we'll definitely be able to help you get that full-fledged portfolio together for yourself. So don't be afraid, folks. I will start picking on people and making you ask questions.
I'll go ahead and start.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No. Well, Ryle, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, appreciate it. I wanted to ask, because when you're talking about these issues, much of this talk is centered around where you are in terms of age too. That's a very key component to these conversations. The advantages that somebody at 20 will have are not the same advantages somebody at 45 will have. So if you're let's say you're 45, 40, a lot of times people really start coming into money. Let's say you're running a business and you really start getting successful at running a business from 40, 45, and your money is starting to really come in at a really good level. What will be some of the, because you're at a point where you can take more risk because the money is good. So if you have an appetite to actually take more risk, what will be a kind of strategy that you would employ? Like if you're talking to a company, a person that owns a company, and let's say for the sake of argument, they're bringing in $400,000 to $500,000 a year, and they want to be able to start really building up their retirement portfolio. What would be one of the strategies y'all would encourage them to take in terms of having a really nice nest egg when they get to retirement age, so they'll be pretty secure for the rest of their lives? Because there might be some people who might not be really interested in maybe just going straight stock market, but they might be interested in going the IUL route. So just give us kind of feedback on that in terms of the person that might be in that age range.
So I love your question. And I'm sorry, guys, I have in Colorado, it is almost time for school to get out, so I'm moving around just a little bit. But the first thing I would ask specifically is, what makes you happy, right? Most of the time we don't earn money to like keep it. We earn it for our families or because we like to go on vacations and do certain things, right? So it really kind of comes down to what do you have this money for, and what can we do to kind of enhance it so that you could do that for the rest of your life. So it would really be a comprehensive kind of journey we have to go through, usually called a fact finder, right? Where we learn more about our clients' wants. And then I usually base the risk tolerance and portfolio off of that, so that we can really ensure that your lifestyle you're able to have it, right? And it aligns with what you want to do. So it's not like, okay, I could tell you to put your money here. That's really personal. It's more so like, who is this person and how can we allocate this money to make sure that you really have it for the things that you love or the people you love.
And Rael is very familiar with me and my favoritism towards life insurance over a lot of other products. So I would actually answer that in the words that, again, like Talani said, risk tolerance is going to have a lot to do with it. And then goals are going to have a lot to do with it, right? So we're going to be looking at, are you looking at tax maximization strategies or, so many other things that are different variables, right? So you may be looking at just putting it into a term life insurance policy, but you don't want to squander money. So you have to get the proper type of a term life insurance policy. And then, in terms of a permanent life policy, does a traditional whole life fit you best? Does an index universal life fit you best? Does a traditional universal life fit you best? Or does a mix of those work? Where if you are open to a little bit of investment risk, you may be willing to go into something called a variable universal life, which does participate in the market in a sense, but it still gives you minimum guarantees on, leaving a legacy for the family. And I guess, BK, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Now, just one last thing is for you and Talani. Old school train of thought is to put your money, like buy funds, buy bonds, and sit on it for 20, 30 years. But as I look at things nowadays, I don't know, does that apply anymore? Do we need to hold it for so long, or do we need to go, as opposed to 20 to 30 years, do we need to do more like 5 to 10 years, and then put the money and start buying newer stocks or going to more large cap? Because I'm starting to look at some of my stuff and on the long term, and I was like, man, you haven't been gaining that much. And it seemed like it lasted for a good 10 to 15 years, and it started going on the decline. And I was like, well, maybe technology is just changing, maybe interest is changing. But I'm just kind of like, I don't know if the long term, maybe the time frame we have for long term is too long. Maybe I need to compress it down to a shorter time frame and start changing my money sooner than what I thought. And I open this to everyone out here. Your thoughts?
Okay, Alonzo, are you okay with me going first on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So honestly, the economy changes every month at this point. But having a diverse portfolio is always going to be a plus. We've seen what happened over the interest rates in general, how they fluctuated from 2009 to now. So having those things that are heavily influenced by interest rates, they're not always the best, right? But during those economic changes where maybe you'll see fluctuations in interest rates, then you're kind of happy you got those bonds or those treasury notes that have that higher percentage yield, right? So really having a good mix is going to keep you strong. But in general, like bonds, treasury notes, things like that are super, super conservative. Like when I think about bonds, in all honesty, I think they're a great gift for babies, right?
Agreed.
Like if I have the money and I have a $20,000 bond, this is going to be really awesome to give as a gift for one of my friends who just had like a newborn or something, right? Like how awesome is it to be like, hey, yeah, I just gave you $20,000 and every year they're going to give you $1,000 interest payment or something like that. Like for a kid, that's magical. For an adult, they're going to kind of laugh at you, right? Like,
right.
Oh,
I was debating
right.
that as a matter with bonds, because I was like bonds, CDs, and then inflation. I was like, man, do they even remotely match inflation? But then again, inflation is this magical number that changes with the wind, and definitely
Right.
every 48 years with whoever's in office in the US.
Correct. Absolutely. And with knowing that, it's still a valuable asset to have within your portfolio. And I really feel like, the closer you are to retirement, of course, you want that type of stability, but it's going to heavily, again, depend on your time horizon and your risk tolerance. Like, what are you actually comfortable with stomaching if you do lose it?
Sure. I hope to lose nothing really. I'd rather break even than lose. And if I do have to lose, bare minimum amount of loss. That's my goal.
Fair enough. So
Agreed, right?
Mhm.
to answer your question from my perspective, I take a little different perspective. Number one, Talani literally took the words out of my mouth at the last moment, which is time horizon, right? So the average time horizon is actually 20 years, and the average rate of return is 10%. And that's due to that's mentioned by Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, who, if you hear them talk, sound exactly the same. I mean, in tonality of voice. But it also depends on, what it is that you like to do. For example, I take a short strategy when I'm investing. So I like to buy stocks that are underperforming with the assumption that they're going to accrete or go up. So it really depends on, again, your risk tolerance and your exit strategy. But things are kind of it is really volatile, but traditionally over the last 120 years, again, average time horizon is 20 years. So it's really kind of a personal thing. And the main crux of that would be your risk tolerance.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for your responses.
Not a problem. Thanks for the question. Anyone else? We still got a few minutes left.
And also too, wouldn't you say that loss is perspective too? Because if you get in early, let's say you get in at 20 and you take a loss, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you learn too. So you kind of develop, develop an appetite for the game, as opposed to getting at 50 and then trying to enter in the game when you're at the more of the tail end of your life cycle. So I would say that part of this in terms of the psychology of the risk is what point in your life are you at? If you're 20 and you're day trading, is it really so bad that you take a loss, as opposed to if you're 50 and 60 and you're taking hella losses? So I would say that factors in as well.
No, I get you. It makes sense. Early on, you can take a lot more hits and bounce back. I think for me, I'm just like, all right, I'm staying very moderate to more conservative, and I'd rather just have a slow gain as opposed to a Bitcoin gain and then all of a sudden a Bitcoin crash to the point where I'm like, crap, I don't know what the hell is going on now. I don't know if I'm up, down, left, right. BA start, just everything just going crazy.
I love the Nintendo reference, bro. Up, down, left, right, BA start.
Yeah, had to.
That was a wonderful thing. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at 6 o'clock. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time, as well as Talani's, because she is a mom, as are a lot of us out here parents. I'm a cat dad at the moment. So everyone, thank you so much for coming out to our first event of 2023. We'll hopefully be having these at least once a month on a various myriad of topics. You guys are definitely here and entered into everything that we have going on initially. You guys may or may not know me from my YouTube personality, where I do kind of sign off with two things. So I want to sign off with that with you guys here. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, when people challenge you, they don't challenge you to challenge you, but they challenge you to challenge you. So accept the challenge. Salute, and thanks for coming.